lost all control. Gravity is all that I know. She's over me. She's over me.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Paranormal Portal Bedtime Stories from Beyond. I'm your host, Brent Thomas, and I hope you're having a great night. Thank you so much for spending it here with us. This is always a great pleasure to be such the receiver of so much kindness and support for trying to live this dream of ours. And you guys have been amazing. So thank you so much for everything you guys do, not only by showing up, but by spreading the word and by supporting us. And those of you who have donated, those of you who have bought gear, those of you who just keep sending all these amazing messages. Thank you so much. It means the world, and it certainly keeps us going here on the portal. So we are in your debt, as it were. So thank you all. But I'm bringing you the bedtime stories. So what can I say? I hope you're ready, because it's time for bed. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are now underway on this Bedtime Stories from Beyond, and hopefully I do a good job at it. I'm certainly going to try to keep you entertained for the duration of our journey tonight, but I like the Bedtime Stories episodes a lot. It's something that I kind of started on a whim just because I felt like, it was such a long distance between our normal shows, which was, well, first it just started out as Friday and Saturday, and then it was like a whole week stretch, and then Friday, Saturday again, and then whole week. And it was like, so we added a Wednesday show, and that really was cool. And the support we got for that was really cool as well. Lots of people showing up, and they were happy that we were adding shows. And then I was thinking, why not try to bring a portal every night? I mean, I love doing the show. I really do. It's something I'm incredibly passionate about. It's something that I love the community that is formed around it. You guys are literally family, and it's been so amazing. So we started the Bedtime Stories, and it was just kind of initially it was just going to be 15-minute shorts, and just to put a smaller, more bite-sized version of the portal out there for people to check out, because not everybody can spend 2 hours watching a show. But it turned out that I couldn't ever turn off the stream after just 15 minutes. I did a few times, but it was just too hard. So, and people kept saying, no, it's too short. It's got to be longer. So we went for the full, basically 45 minutes to an hour. So that's what we've been doing. So, and thank you guys for helping us to create the show, because it's your suggestions and your guys' input that really does help guide our vision and tell us, how we can bring you the best show we can bring you. And so thank you all for that, and thank you for making a community around us. It's just been incredibly humbling and amazing. So anyway, let's get underway here. I've got some stories to talk to you about, and I hope you'll enjoy them. But the first one tonight is coming out of the state of New York. New York. All right, let's see what's going on here. So this story takes place a whole lot of years ago, when I was born and raised in Spanish Harlem in New York City. I was a child, about 4 or 5, when before me, I saw an old lady, or a hag. She never said anything to me. She just stared at me in a creepy kind of way. According to an older sister who is now deceased, strange things happened. Items would disappear from the kitchen. Strange lights were seen on the bedroom ceilings. And I told my father about the old lady I saw, and he asked me if she ever said anything to me. And I told him no. She just looks at me, and I saw her maybe 3 times. Now, many years later, when an older brother passed away while at his services, my sister just happened to mention that she had seen the old lady too. But of course, he was gone, and I had no chance to discuss it with him, and what he had seen, or if she had anything to say to him. As best as I remember her, besides being very old, she was very petite and wore her hair in an old-fashioned bun. She was wearing a white apron over a long gray dress, and she did not look like anyone I knew. But even at that age, I knew that what I was seeing was something strange. I've never forgotten this incident, and I'm now almost in my 60s, so you can see it had a profound effect on me. It has also made me have a very open mind about the paranormal and supernatural. That apartment building stands to this day, and last September, when I visit my family back east, I make it a point to go past the building. And I look up at the window where my family once lived and know that I had an encounter with something really otherworldly. I've retold this story to the best of my recollection, and it's all 100% true. And it says underneath it, there's like a follow-up part. It says, this is kind of a follow-up for newbies. I'll be brief. You're Anubis, my cat. He's scratching. He's got a collar with a bell, trying to give the wildlife outside a chance. I'll be brief. When I was about 5, I saw an old woman in the New York apartment I lived with my parents. She wore her hair in a bun and was petite, and she never said a word to me, but I knew, even at that age, that she was otherworldly. Through the wonders of the internet, I was able to track down the company that manages the building, and I called and spoke to the manager, a friendly gentleman by the name of Tony, and I explained my reason for the call, and he was gracious and told me that no, he had never heard of any strange phenomena at the building, but that he would keep my phone number and contact me if anything of this nature came up. I must admit I was surprised, as I know this apartment had spirits, as well as I believe 2 other apartments. I have to keep in mind that the building has undergone renovations over the years, and the front of the building looks entirely different from the time my family and I lived there, and this building is very old, at least 85 years or more. Now, it seems to me that maybe some people may have and are hesitant to mention it for fear of being labeled. Maybe some people had the apartment blessed, or maybe no one has ever really seen or experienced anything. I really would have appreciated some feedback, as I know my family and I really did experience this phenomena. That's really cool. Yeah, I don't know. Those just random apparitions like that, it's hard to know. Now, it did seem as though, according to her story, it was looking at her. This apparition was looking at her, but didn't seem to have any emotion, just was kind of a blank, I'm looking at you stare. I don't know. I wonder what those kind of things mean, or if there's any, I mean, there must be something symbolic about it, or some reason that it appeared, but I don't know. Makes me wonder. But that's the beauty of the paranormal. It's any idea is as valid as any other idea. And there are no wrong answers, because as of right now, there's no right answers. We just don't know. This stuff just happens, when it happens, why it happens, where it happens. So, what do you do? All right, the next one's coming from California. It says, when I was 16, I experienced what I really think was an out-of-body experience. I was sleeping on the floor of my bedroom, and all of a sudden, I felt like I really needed to wake up. And the thing was, I was already awake, but I was watching myself from above my body. I don't know how to put what it was like into words other than to say physically I was lying down, unable to move. Mentally, I was scared and wanted to cry and yell for my mom, but I couldn't. I couldn't even open my eyes. I've read stories about sleep paralysis, but I don't think I've read one where the person is also looking down at themselves from somewhere above. I know it wasn't a dream, because while looking down at myself, I was wearing the same pajamas that I was sleeping in the same position I was when I went to bed. The reason why this tells me I wasn't dreaming is because, well, I have back problems, and sometimes I have to sleep in any position that is comfortable when my back is hurting. Sometimes it takes me being a human pretzel to be comfortable. While this was happening, I felt as if someone was there watching me from the doorway, which was to the right of me, and also when I woke up, it was as if I had done it on my own. It wasn't a rude awakening, if you will. The next day I told my mom about it, and I was expecting her to tell me I was weird. Instead, she told me that it had happened to her as well. A few years before my experience, my mom was in a very bad car accident, and while in surgery, she said she woke up and was watching herself being worked on from above, and she never told me about it because she didn't want to scare me. But she did tell her friend, and her friend told her that it was an out-of-body experience. And yeah, those are really bizarre and cool and wild and amazing, and I don't know. Certainly, it's an out-of-body experience. Astral projecting is nothing new. I mean, people have been talking about that ever since all of time, as far as I know. I mean, the Hindus, the Buddhists, this is a very old idea of projecting outside of your body into an astral plane. But it's a very powerful experience, especially when these people are able to observe details. And so there's many people that have had near-death experiences that basically starts out like that. They're basically hovering over their bodies, and they've maybe been in an accident and they're kind of teetering on the alive and dead thing. You're just kind of in the middle, and so they're in this in-between state. They're not in their body, but they are able to observe things that have happened, and even when they're quote-unquote clinically dead. They don't really have a pulse or any brain activity, but they are able to observe things, and even in other rooms. There's been reports of people able to see what's going on in adjacent rooms and in waiting rooms a distance away where family members are. They can hear the things they're talking about, and processing all of that, and then they're able to come back when they're revived or whatever, and able to report those things, even to the point of seeing accidents like nurses dropping something in the surgery room or something. Many of those kind of stories have surfaced, and Raymond Moody did a lot of work about the NDEs or near-death experiences, and astral projection is certainly part of it. But that makes sense because astral projection, our consciousness, our conscious spiritual self, can project, and I suppose death is the greatest astral projection of all, because we project out into whatever's next. Or at least we're supposed to. Some end up lingering, but for whatever the case, that's pretty intense. And it's something I can't say that I've ever experienced myself, and I don't know how I would feel if I did experience it. I think it might be a little terrifying, because it's like, oh, is this it? Am I dead now? I don't know. I guess time will tell, because it's one journey we're all going to take eventually. Okay, so next, let's see what's going on. And this one's coming from Michigan. I got family in Michigan. I say that every time the Michigan comes up, because it's kind of a shout out to my family. They listen, and it's kind of the shout out. So, all right. This says, I have an hour gap between two of my classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I usually go back to my dorm during that hour and take a nap, since I rarely get to bed at a decent hour. I could use the whole college kid gotta study in the wee hours of the morning excuse, but usually I'm just goofing around on the internet and losing track of the time. In any case, I take a nap. One morning, however, when my alarm went off to alert me to the fact that it was time to get up and head out to my second class, I decided it wouldn't hurt to miss just one day, especially since I was really so tired that the very thought of getting up was making my head hurt, and subsequently, I turned off the alarm and fell back into bed. I woke up again around noon, just as that second class would have been ending, because my roommate had gotten up and was moving around the room to get ready for her own class. The lucky wench managed to get classes that were later in the day. As I was laying there thinking about who I should email to get the day's notes, I'm not completely irresponsible, just mostly so, I heard a loud, angry male's voice say rather quickly, "Get up and make the bed." Or perhaps just make the bed. This was really pretty disconcerting, as the last time I checked, my roommate was female and had a voice that was hard to mistake for anything remotely masculine. So I sat up and looked out at her, but she didn't even seem to notice that I was awake or the voice itself. She gathered her books and left the room, leaving me to lay back in bed and wondered what the hell I just heard. Well, that's weird. That's plenty weird. And just a random voice, just a one-off. And the one-off haunting things are the most odd to me. I don't understand how come just once. Like a door closed once and that was it. Then nothing ever happened, the end. I don't understand what's going on in those one-off situations, but maybe it's a spirit guide perhaps getting pissed off at this person laying around like that. I don't know. Just a thought. But it could be anything. The next one is from Pennsylvania. Hello, everyone. This is my first ghost story, so please go easy on me, it says. The encounter I'm about to tell you is totally true, but it's possible that I might have imagined some of them. Anyway, I guess it's up to all of you to decide. I was in my room one time and getting ready for bed when all of a sudden I see this orb floating near my bedroom window. I really didn't think too much of it, but it was a little spooky, I have to admit. I believe this was my first ghost experience, and a sign that my house is possibly haunted. Here's a creepy encounter. On Halloween night, my siblings were watching television in the living room, and my dad was on the computer. My mom was in the basement doing the laundry. Everybody was busy just doing their own thing, so I was the only one who witnessed this, and I was sitting on the living room floor, not really paying attention to the television, and I don't know why, but just happened to glance into the kitchen. Now, let me explain how my house is set up so you don't get confused. The kitchen is sort of connected to the dining area, which leads to the living room. So if you're in the living room, you can get a good view of the dining room and the kitchen at the same time. So there I was sitting on the floor, and then a dark figure walks into the dining room. I thought it was my mom at first, but then I suddenly realized she was in the basement. I couldn't see the figure anymore because it went all the way in the back of the dining area, and here's the part where I totally freak out. My mom comes out of the basement with the laundry basket, and I rushed into the dining room. The figure was gone. I was so confused that I actually started crying. I never saw the dark figure after that incident, but I did have another ghostly encounter. Last month, my sister was at this Webkins, I guess it's Webkins Club at school. I don't know what that means, but so it was just me, Mom, and my little brother at home. And I sat next to my mom on the couch because I wanted to watch Oprah with her. But after a few minutes, I got thirsty, so I went in the kitchen to get a drink, and I opened the fridge and I searched for the Pepsi, which is your first mistake. And then when I spotted it, I reached and grabbed it, but as I was doing this out of the corner of my eye, I saw a little girl walk up to me, stopped and stared, and left the kitchen. I ignored her because I was thinking she was my sister, but when I finished my drink, I realized she was at the Webkins Club, and I was really, really surprised. Another time my friend came over and I told her about some strange things that recently had happened in our house, and she agreed that the house was officially haunted. We decided to go on a little ghost hunt, and that's when we began our investigation. Our first stop was at the basement because our cats always sense something down there. To make a long story short, we got really creepy vibes, like something was watching us. We even heard footsteps, and that sent us screaming and running upstairs. It was actually really fun, but scary at the same time. One day, and this is my recent experience, the cats were meowing loudly in the basement. I guess they sensed something, so I went down to check, and I stopped on the 5th step or so because there was this blue misty fog just hovering in one spot. It was so creepy, it sent shivers down my spine. I'm not sure if this part was part of my imagination, but it just seemed so vivid and real. Well, I hope you enjoyed them. Sorry I didn't include many details, but my experiences are kind of hard to explain. I'll keep you posted if you have any advice, questions, or whatever. Please leave a comment. Well, there you have it. I don't really have much of a comment. I mean, things happen. These things happen. Why? I don't know. I really don't know. It's possible she's some psychic. She has some abilities, and she can just see, and maybe has never really come to terms with that, or never really thought about that. Seeing apparitions and figures is no small thing. Some people just can. I think that the spirits can choose to manifest so intensely that anybody can if they choose, but I think that the sensitive people can just see them all the time or whenever, if they're in that right frame of mind. I do believe it takes still a bit of focus or concentration, whether on purpose or not. I think sometimes we get in that like relaxed, pondering state, and then all of a sudden we're seeing things that we don't normally see. And one of which of those things could be an apparition. It's just a possibility. This one's from California. I heard this story from my mom, how she encountered a ghost. And a long time ago, my mom, who was my age, 16, and her 2 older siblings just moved into this really small, tiny house. My mom made new friends really quickly at school, and one of them was named Ashley. And she told my mom how everyone thought that the house my mom moved into was haunted because people seemed to see strange things by the house. My mom believed in ghosts, but she wouldn't think that her family would actually move into a haunted house. Over a couple of weeks, strange things did begin to happen. My mom told me that while she laid in bed, she could hear scratches on the walls, and randomly lights would turn on and off. She also told me that when her and her siblings would play checkers, 1 or 2 checkers would be missing and randomly show up anywhere with a thumb printed in the checker. One night my mom was sleeping and woke up, and she told me that she just sat up in bed and just looked at the door for no reason whatsoever. She just felt she needed to look at the door, and she could see the hallway from her door, and she could see her sister's room across from hers. A pale man with a suit walked into my sister's room, and he looked over at my mom and grinned. My mom was shocked to see a ghost walking into her sister's room, so she was just frozen in fear. She told me that the ghost had a hat on with a feather in it, and he looked like he was from the Civil War. What is weird is that my mom's sister, after that night, started getting meaner and meaner. My mom's sister hates my mom for no reason at all. My mom told me that over the years her sister has gotten weirdly mean and just terrible, and she told me it all happened after that night she saw the ghost. Wow. Well, that's not a good ghost then, is it? If it's changing the way somebody behaves, that's not a good thing. I don't know about all that. That's just terrible. I mean, there again, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, I've often said on the show that I think the term demon gets overused a lot in the paranormal world. It's just it's like a cheap and easy definition for anything that makes people uncomfortable. And it's not that I don't believe they're out there. I do. I really do. And I think that they are, very powerful beings. But I think that oppression and possession can take place from things that aren't demons as well. I think that there's just some really negative, vile spirits around that they just want to live again, and they're often referred to as walk-ins, and it's kind of a possession, but I don't think it's quite as intense or life-shattering as a demonic one. But a situation like this where somebody just changes and they're not the same as they used to be, and something's just going awry in their lives and their demeanor changes, things like that. And I think that those are potentially situations where there may be a walk-in. There might be some negative entity that's decided to try to, take over or at least live through this person. And they can be just as terrible, but not nearly as potent as if it were truly a demon. But yeah, that's scary stuff. All right, so let's close that one and come on to the next one. All right, this one's coming from California. When I was 11 years old, living in Santa Rosa, California, we rented a real small duplex in a really old neighborhood, and it was always cold and damp and smelled like mold. Oh no. My mom was in the back of the duplex. It had a large sliding glass doors that would walk out into the weed-infested backyard. And one night in the wintertime at about 2 a.m., I woke up suddenly with my eyes wide open. I felt a presence in my room, and my room was only lit by the moonlight. I felt some pressure on the chest and tried to speak, but I couldn't. It was a choking throbbing in my throat. My arms and legs went stiff as a board, and I couldn't move them at all. Even my neck stiffed up. My muscles were all clenched up, and I could only move my eyes around the room. I looked up at my bookshelf case, and it stands about 8 feet high, and on the very top of the shelf I could see my doll sitting there, staring down at me. The doll was a gift from my mom. His name was Joey, and it was called a Joey doll. I was so very scared, and I'm getting goosebumps even now writing this, and I'm 32 years old. Eventually, since nothing else happened, I fell asleep, but I'll never forget that night for the rest of my life. The doll was still up there in the morning, and I took it down and threw it out. Good for you. That's a good move right there. Oh, well, that's a good move. I think getting rid of anything, I mean, whether it's actually connected to that or not, it doesn't matter, because at the very least, it would be a very symbolic act, and perhaps that's cathartic in and of itself. Whether or not the doll was actually a negative thing and had brought this into her life, or if that was just what she saw, and so in her mind that became attached, and by casting it out, she is symbolically casting out that darkness or that presence. Now, there's a lot of debate in the paranormal and scientific communities about the whole sleep paralysis thing, and there is merit for the scientific explanation, and I think very much that does exist. That it's, and quite honestly, most people are more prone to believe that than anything, that there's just a disconnect because of this chemical that's released when we sleep that disconnects our mind from our body, so that we don't act out our dreams and just run outside a door and into traffic or something stupid. And so it keeps you basically immobilized while you're sleeping. And so the paralysis part is just your mind is a little quicker waking up than your body's ready for you to wake up. And so there's that in-between state where that chemical isn't quite cleansed from your bloodstream and so on. I do believe that happens and that occurs, and that would explain probably a very large segment of these sleep paralysis claims, or sleep, old hag type of claims. But I do believe there are also things, and these things take advantage of people in their sleep and draw, energy and life from them. I'm not sure, why or how or whatever. I mean, it's the big unknowns of the paranormal, but I do believe there is a very real phenomena that exists where this does happen. But it's hard to differentiate the two because, by and large, if there is a medical explanation, people are always going to default to that, and they're going to dismiss the spiritual. And I think that's the mistake. I don't think that they're exactly the same things, but they're similar enough that people just go, oh, well, that's like this. That's what it is. Just, and they can retain their paradigm then. They don't have to have it threatened. And people defend their paradigm so desperately. I think we all do, I guess. I don't think it's just some people, but, nobody wants to be wrong, but I just think it's, there are some really spiritual things that happen that our modern Western thinking has dismissed. And I don't think that's a good thing, because it leaves people perhaps vulnerable to things that our ancestors wouldn't have been. There's a lot of ancient wisdoms that are forgotten in the face of science. And I think science is amazing and wonderful and has done amazing things for our standard in life and standard of living and our health and well-being. But that doesn't mean you discard all of the old. I think there's a balance that has to be retained or maintained or rediscovered. So hopefully that's kind of what we're doing here on the portal. Hopefully. All right. We're going to go to Indiana this time. This one's pretty long one, so I hope you're comfy. Hope you're all comfy, because this one's going to take a little bit of time. And we'll just keep going and see where we end up here. I understand as you read this, you will be skeptical, but keep in mind, I'm writing this to help anyone suffering from night possession, bad dreams, or spiritual harassment. First, I'd like to start out my story by saying that many years I have been a very bad sleepwalker. I sleepwalk a lot, and I researched it a lot, and sleepwalking I had was very similar to the way night terrors are described on Wikipedia, but also very different. Once I chased my roommate's son and tried to hurt him. I have punched doors, walls, broken chairs, and other furniture, and the scariest 2 times for me, however, like chasing somebody's kid isn't one of them? That's terrifying. The scariest 2 times for me, however, were once I woke up and thought to myself, oh no, not again. And the fact that I could think that and then continued my sleepwalk rampage upset me a little. The other time was when I hadn't slept for a day, and I worked a night shift at the time, and my roommates were getting ready for work, and I was already ready, so I sat in a chair and nodded off for about 10 minutes. They were still getting ready when I stood up, walked up to my roommate, and stared at her. Her husband said, "Yo, bro, you okay?" And it was then I woke up. The whole time this was happening, I could see them, but it was like my vision was very shaky. When I woke up after he asked if I was okay, my heart was pounding fast, and I looked down at my hands were in fists and shaking really badly, and I had an adrenaline rush. And this brings me to the next section of my story. Me and my friends were messing around with a Ouija board. Finally got it to work, but it was really half-garbled messages and stuff, and soon we thought of another better way to communicate, and I won't say how because I don't want anyone else to do this ever. For one, we got very lucky during communication, and 2, it's very, very dangerous. I would highly advise against anyone using Ouija boards for any other form of spirit communication. I know you're curious to try, but try hard not to do it. The information we got was both frightening and comforting. I know you as a reader are, of course, skeptical of my story and any story you see here, but I've read stories that, with the information I have now, I can say, yep, that's definitely true. Or read replies answering people asking for help and thinking to myself, yep, that person has experience and it will help. Some of the things we discovered were, yes, demons are freaking real. Yes, they are, and they will try to cut in on any spirit communication you have. 2, anyone who is into New Age Wicca stuff is completely wrong. Well, and please, please, please do not listen to them. Crystals, salt, and all that will not help you. You might end up getting into serious trouble listening to them. One of the things I asked the spirits was if I was possessed when I sleepwalk, and they said yes. And they told me the name of the demon and everything, and told me I would hurt someone. I asked how I can be rid of this demon, and I got a very clear message. It said to me, Jesus and love. Keep in mind, dear reader, I'm not Christian, and in fact, up to that point, I was very anti-Christian, and I thought Christians believed in some Middle East myth, much like the Greek gods, and tried hard to push their man-made, book-born mythology into the rest of us. But when the demons tried to interfere with the communication, I used his name, and they were scared. It would clear communication up enough for us to get straight answers for a bit. But I want to share with you, and anyone suffering from fear, sleep possession, demon harassment, hauntings, and any would-be Ouija board or automatic writing of the things I've learned from the communications. 1, demons are real. The other side is real. And you have spirit guides. Angels are real as well. 2, rituals don't work. Almost not at all. There are only 2 I know of that do, and I will only tell you one, called the family ritual. That's where the family, blood family only, meet and ask thankfulness from God. Jesus and love are the only 2 things that can save you from demons. Demons hate, and they are here from hate. And they want you because they hate. They want two things. They either want to control you or they want you to cut your time here short, like die. Demons like to attack you in your sleep or when you're otherwise in a vulnerable state. If you suffer from this, just try this and say, "In Jesus' name, be gone," and it will work. Spirit guides cannot read your mind. Angels and demons can. Number 5, reincarnation is real. Number 6, the Torah is the most accurate version of the Bible. The New Testament is not very accurate. 7, demons can and will try to jump on the chance to take over and possess during stuff like automatic writing and Ouija board communications. Beware and remember Jesus. 8, demons do use backwards speech. If you ever get a message in any form that says something backwards, immediately ask the spirit, "Do you love Jesus?" A demon cannot say yes. They can lie about all kinds of stuff, but they can't lie about that. Also, if you ever see a spirit, it will appear as a shadowy figure mentioned a lot in most ghost stories. Beware, shadows are not good ever. Number 9, during any spirit communication, constantly verify stuff with Jesus' name and love and make sure a demon is not cutting in trying to cause harm. Number 10, if you have trouble at any time, remember Jesus is there for you. And Michael the Archangel is there for you. Michael can be in more than one place at a time. Ask him to banish evil spirits wanting to do you harm, and he will help. And Jesus will help. I know I'm sounding preachy and talking about Jesus a lot, but I once hated him, and when I needed him, he was there for me. I no longer sleepwalk, and I'm no longer scared when I'm alone or I sit in the dark. I can live my life now and not have to worry about spirit stuff anymore. If you're being harassed by something unknown, remember what I wrote here. It will help. And I've also learned through communications that most ghost hunters, demonologists, psychic investigators, and super devout religious people don't know squat about ghosts, spirits, or demons. If you have any questions on that kind of stuff, email me. Well, I appreciate that, preachy guy. And I'm not really making fun of it. I think faith is incredibly powerful. And whatever kind of faith you have, I don't agree with several things this person said, but I agree that, love is the key to anything good and wonderful. And, I think Jesus is a very powerful name, but that power is born in the heart of the worshiper or the believer. The name of Jesus being invoked is incredibly powerful, but again, that is invoked within the heart of the believer. I don't know how else to say that, and that's not me diminishing the power of that religion, of Christianity or anything. I think religions are incredibly powerful, but I think even Jesus said it best: "It is done unto you as you believe." And that there are many that may pick that apart and say, "No, it meant this." That doesn't mean what you're saying. It means something else. Well, I think it means what I'm saying, and you may believe differently, and that's cool. Great. I think it's just important to have a faith, whatever that is, and a good faith, a faith in something loving and kind and wonderful. I think it's important to manifest that in your life, in whatever way, and that's up to you to decide. And the portal will never be a preachy place, telling you, advising you to do one thing or not to do another. It's up to you to find your path. I'm just here to discuss phenomena. That's what the portal is. We discuss phenomena. We discuss the paranormal and ideas and stuff. And wherever you get to or wherever you go with it is up to you. I just like the discussion. I like to hear people's ideas and thoughts and experiences, and that helps me to learn, because there are no experts, and I'm not an expert. I'm an enthusiast. I'm enthusiastic about this material. I think that the paranormal is an amazing set of events that demonstrate an incredibly amazing reality that we live in, that we most often forget because we're too stuck in our 9-to-5s and Monday through Fridays, and all of our mundane life just beats that spark out. But things like the paranormal seem to reinvigorate that spark in me and show me that there's magic out there. There's just amazing things out there. There is divine things happening. And there's some scary things happening too, don't get me wrong. But, I think in there is the truth. So take it for whatever you will. Take whatever meaning you derive from what I just said. Cool. Even if you don't agree with me, very cool. I mean, fantastic. I don't want to shape your beliefs. I don't want to be responsible for you believing or not believing anything. I just want to discuss things with you, and I'll share my thoughts with you. And they may be right and they may be wrong. They're just right as I know them for me. So I don't ever, want people to think that I got all this stuff figured out. I mean, I don't, but I'm working on it. All right. The next one's from Oklahoma. I was really young at this time, but I was frightened enough that I didn't forget. My mother was in the kitchen, perhaps doing dishes or cleaning something, and my brother and I were in the living room, and I was playing in the living room with some toys and decided I wanted to get something from my bedroom. I vividly remember walking into my room and looking around the floor, and the floor was a bit messy. There was enough light coming in from the open door for me to see, so I didn't bother to turn the light on, and in all honesty, I do not remember what I went to get, as I never did find it. A few seconds to a minute after entering the room, I felt a presence, and I heard a very loud breathing right next to me. The breathing sounded extremely angry, evil, loud, and clear, and yet I saw nobody there. I was immediately frightened, but at that same time in total disbelief that I was hearing this. I froze and stood still for a second, telling myself that it was all in my imagination. It had to be. After trying to convince myself that it was my imagination, the breathing didn't stop. So I ran as fast as I could to where my mom was, and I curled up on the floor at her feet, screaming, "Please pray, Mommy, please pray. There's something evil in this house." We did not live long in this house, and I'm thankful. Recently, I was watching some YouTubes, and it was talking about ghosts, spirits, and demons, which my son pointed out to me. And midway through, there's a clip of a camera on a tripod filming a dining area. Some furniture and things are shuffled around, a door opens and closes, but what really scared me was when I turned up the volume and I heard a heavy, angry breathing in that video, which sounded exactly as I heard as a child. I never finished watching that video after hearing that. That's pretty powerful. That's a tough place for a kid to have to be, in a terrifying situation like that. I sure hope the mom was really supportive of that and talked with them and helped him work through that, or her. I don't know. I don't know if it's a boy or a girl that wrote that, but very intense. The next one's from Arizona. I want to start this story off by explaining a little bit about myself and my background. I was born and raised in Tucson and spent my entire childhood in essentially one house until middle school, when my family moved into an older but much nicer house. My parents were really religious, and I was raised to be really religious as well. Looking back at my childhood, I think I've always been a little bit sensitive to the paranormal, a little more than most, and my parents always explained it away as an overactive imagination or spiritual attacks, and these explanations worked for a long time until this night this story takes place. About the time I was getting into middle school, my father's job was doing really good, and we moved out of the little subdivision house into a larger custom house, and this house is at least 20 years old, but it had only two owners. The older couple we bought the house from were really nice, but just a little bit off. Nothing really weird, mind you, just a little strange. My parents didn't see it, but as soon as I stepped into the house for the first time, I just felt that something wasn't right. Nothing too unusual beside this slight uneasy feeling happened for a couple of years until I was a freshman in high school. The old lady that used to live in the house had some ailment that inhibited her ability to walk very well, and The one time I saw her, she was walking across the carpeted living room, and her feet kind of made this scooting sound as she walked because she couldn't lift her feet. One night during my freshman year of high school, I was up late writing a paper when at about 3 in the morning, I heard those scooting footsteps crossing the living room. Well, I jumped up and turned on the light and searched the house from one end to the other and didn't find anything. My family being asleep in the rooms at the far end of the house, to say the least, this experience was unnerving and ended my homework for the night, and I went into my room and locked the door and tried to get some sleep. The next morning, like many people do, I suspect I blew it all off and decided that it was the result of too many hours in front of a computer and not enough sleep. Nonetheless, the next night I didn't spend any time out in the living room after the rest of my family went to bed. My room at the time was a little more than a large walk-in closet that the previous owners used as a small workroom for storage. And it was in the far end of the house from the other bedrooms, and it had no window and only one door that led into the hallway to the garage. During that day, with the door shut, this room was as dark as a cave. Absolutely no light got in. And at night, I had to leave the door open just to let what ambient light I could from the dark hallway in order to find my way out of the room if need be. Due to the previous night's experience, I was a little uneasy about the dark, but I fell asleep pretty quickly. And anyway, I have no idea what time it was or what woke me up, but suddenly I was wide awake and alert. I didn't move a muscle, but lay there trying to figure out exactly what had woke me up and if it would happen again. Nothing extraordinary happened, and so I got up to check the rest of the house. However, as I turned towards the door, this feeling of absolute danger and evil hit me. I looked towards the door, and somehow, silhouetted against a very faint light coming through the doorway, was a huge figure. Like, I'm 6'2" and 200 pounds of muscle, and this shape was at least 1.5 feet taller and much wider than I was. And from this figure radiated such hate and what I can only describe as evil. The temperature of the room went from cold to absolute freezing, and I felt something hit me very hard in the chest, and my throat seemed to close. I literally felt like someone was kneeling on my chest and strangling me, and I thought that I was going to die, killed by something I couldn't fight or see. I can't tell you how long this lasted or what caused it to stop, but just as I thought I would black out and die, the weight lifted from my chest and my throat, and I could breathe again. I could feel that whatever had been there was gone, and I was alone again, and my room was absolute mess from the struggle, and it was its usual temperature, and as soon as I could, I turned the light on and all the lights in the kitchen, hall, and living room. The only sign that anything happened was the mess in my room and a very slight red ring around my neck. The next morning I told my parents about it, and they just passed it off with the usual reasons that it was all in my head or I was dreaming. I know I wasn't asleep, and I'm not crazy. It really happened, and there was no way I would ever sleep in that room again. Now, I am and was a big guy, and I'm not afraid of anything living on this planet, but that night I was absolutely filled with terror, and not for my life, but whatever it was, it felt like it wanted more than just my life. I don't understand what it could have been, but it only happened that one night, and as far as I can tell, the whatever was in that house returned to complete rest after that. I have many more stories about different places and completely different situations, but I thought since this is my first one and my first experience that I would just judge by the responses I get whether I continue to post more. Well, that's intense. That's really terrifying. I'm sorry that happened to you. But I don't know what those things are. What is it? What could it be? It's so, if it's that big and that imposing and that mad and evil, could it be something like a demon? I don't know. That's plenty scary though. Plenty scary stuff. But I don't know, ladies and gentlemen, but I can tell you that I've enjoyed this journey into the paranormal portal with you. I hope you've enjoyed it as well and you feel sufficiently entertained. I just love doing these shows, and it never gets old. It never does. Every night it's a new night. And I'm just thrilled you guys keep coming back for more. So thank you so much, everybody, for being a part of the shows and a part of our journey through the portal. And thank you for all the encouragement and support you guys have offered. It's really amazing. And we are absolutely indebted to all of you for making all of this possible. So I guess in closing, I love y'all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other, help each other out, and find the magic in every day. And remember to laugh as much as you can. All right, everybody, have a great night, and I'll be back. I promise.